the one, the only, Ben Sion. Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Just off it. Today we're doing Maseches Gittin, Daf Lamed Aleph, number 31. We'll be actually finishing the third parak. Very exciting. I was talking with a friend of mine over here. He also happened to learn Daf Yomi. He doesn't give a share in Daf Yomi. He said, Maseches Gittin, so lumdish, so great. I said, listen, Gittin is not one of my favorite Masechtas. I don't know why. I just don't connect to Maseches Gittin. Yes, there's a lot of lumdas, supposedly, but I just don't connect to it. I don't know. I feel divorce is something the Torah allows because, right, like most of America, you have differences which you can't reconcile, and that's number one reason that people put down why they're getting divorced. But divorce really is an outlet. Some people need to make use of it, but a real man stays in his marriage. He tries to do anything not to get divorced because, especially with kids, divorce is not a good thing. It's almost never a good thing, divorce, unless there's abuse going on. Divorce is never a good thing, especially when you have children. So try to stick it out, you know. So that's why maybe I don't connect with it. The Mishnah says, the middle of Lamed Aleph and Aleph, Aminiach Peiros, Lios Mafresh Alein Trumos and Maisros. A person, right, he takes those Trumos and Maisros from his payrolls. He puts some in a room, he leaves them there, and those will be Trumos and Maisros, a special room that's filled with all the Trumos and Maisros. He'll give to the Kohan and the Levium. Or he leaves most, Lios Mafresh Alein Maiser Sheni. At Maiser Sheni, he wants to Machalal, right, the payros Meiser Sheni onto the money, and I'll bring the money to Yerushalayim. Mafresh Alein B'cheskas Shenchim. You don't have to go check every day to see if they're still there, if they still rotted. You can't take sure something that's rotted or it's not there, it was stolen. Im Avdu, if they're lost, then he goes checks them and they're lost. Areza Choshesh Me'es Leis. Divrei Lazar. It says you have to worry Me'es Leis within a 24-hour period. We'll explain this in the Gemara. Yehuda Omer, a different halacha. M'soshe Prakim Bokinas Hayayim. Right, you want to check 3 times the wine, right? Let's say you put the wine in a separate room, take out shumas and maisos. You have to make sure it didn't turn to vinegar. If it turned to vinegar, you can't take shumas and maisos from wine on vinegar. It's something totally different. V'kidam shel motzei achag, when the wind starts to blow after Sukkot is over. Uve hotzas smadar, when the grapes start to grow, the buds of the grapes start to grow. Uveshas knisas mayim levosar, when the young grapes, the unripe grapes, the juice comes into them. Then you have to check the grapes to see whether the liquid became vinegar or it's still good for grape juice and wine. Then where it says my meis leis, what do the Mishnah say? They have to check it leis leis. Rabbi Yochanan Amar meis leis shel bedika. Right? Basically, you have to be worried that the Trumas and Maestros within 24 hours. The last 24 hours, you checked it. Within the last 24 hours, maybe it was stolen then. But before 24 hours, we could assume the Trumas and Maisos, any Trumas and Maisos that you're a mafresh, you would consider that you're mafresh and use those payros in the fruit, payros in the room to be considered Trumas and Maisos. That was okay. We trusted they were still there at that point. Lezer ben Antigonus, Homashum Lezer, Rabbi Yanai, Me'es La'es, top of Lamed Aleph Beis, Me'es La'es Shel Hanacha. He says no. You go all the way back, right? When you put the fruits into that room, so you have 24 hours. 24 hours from that time, let's say you put it 2 weeks ago, so 24 hours from the time you put it, you could assume that it was there. After that, we have to worry that it was lost. Two different opinions, two very different opinions. None. Our Mishnah said, "Avdu hareza choshesh me'es leis bishlam alamad amar me'es leis shel bedika shapir." The language makes sense, right? Your choshesh me'es leis, last 24 hours, maybe it was taken already. Alamad amar me'es leis shel hanacha. According to the second opinion, that basically you worry about that it was lost the entire time. The only time you assume the chazaka that it was still there was the first 24 hours. Hi me'es leis. You shouldn't say me'es leis. Ad me'es leis mi boyalei. The lashon of the Mishnah should be that we're choshesh the entire time until the first 24 hours. First 24 hours, we assume that it was still there. After that, we were choshesh. Kasha. It's indeed a difficulty. It's more mistaber to say the first explanation. We'll see. Neither of these opinions is the true halacha in a second. Divrei Rabbi Lazar. Amar Rabbi Lazar, who was not a Tana, he was an Amora, said, Chalukin alav chaver of Rabbi Lazar. The friends arguing Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar was Rabbi Lazar ben Shamua. Desnan, mikvah shenimda, we have a Mishnah, Maseches, nida, mikvah shenimda v'nimsa chaser. You measure a mikvah. You thought it was 40 sa, and then you measure it and you see that it was missing 40 sa. Kol taro shenaso gabo l'mafrei ben shel ben sharabim tmeos. Anything, even 1 minute ago that happened, right? Even though 10 days I measured the mikvah, and it was kosher mikvah. Now I measure it 10 days later, and it's not a full mikvah. So even 1 minute before a person went, or Kalim went into the mikvah, we assume that it was missing. Even 1 minute before. Or even right after the bedika, right after you checked it, right? It was, basically 3 days ago. You checked it 10 days ago. So 10 days ago minus, right, the next minute after that, we assume that it was already missing water. And they're not tar. Whether they were nitva, when the tefillah happened in public or in private, tmeos, we assume they're tameh, misfeka. Now, obviously, if it's Shli Yachid, Safek Tuma Shli Yachid, you go L'chomer. The question is, Safek Tuma B'Shush Harabim, right? We know that Safek Tuma B'Shush Harabim, you're Mekel on Safek Tuma B'Shush Harabim. Why are we Mekel on Safek Tuma B'Shush Harabim? I'm sorry, the fact that we're Mekel on Safek Tuma B'Shush Harabim, so why are we Mekel over here? It's a Safek, we're not sure. I'll explain that in Eon with Ben Sion. The Gemara said Pshita de Chalukin. Obviously, right, the rabbis who wrote the Mishnah Maseches Nida are cholik on it. You might think that retroactively they're tamei. What does that mean? They're retroactively tamei? Only within the past 24 hours. But before 24 hours, we assume we rely on the chazaka from 10 days ago that it was tar, that it was a full mikvah. Kamash Milan. No, we don't rely on it at all. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, the Mishnah continues, Yehuda says, Begimel Prakim, Tana Bekidam Shal Motzei Achag, the wind of Motzei Achag Shal Tkufa. It has to be when Sukkot fell out in the autumn. It fell out in the fall, right after September 21st. If it fell out in the summer, we don't assume the wind made it, because when I see the wind, a certain wind, the eastern wind, makes things go bad very quickly. It's a very harmful wind. Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, 3 times we'll see in a partnership, right? You're not supposed to sell part of your goods or whatever you own in your partnership without consulting with your partner. Sometimes when the price is really high, you can get a good price for it, or the prices are going down dramatically, you can sell even without consulting your partner. So let's say you own grain or grain seeds, right before the planting, it's very high, the price. When they're actually planting, people are still paying good prices. Pesach, basically 15 days before Pesach, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. At that time, it's right before the Omer, so people still want grain at that time from the old crop because they can't have the new crop. So they sell it for a high price. 3 times a year you can sell wine without consulting. 50 days before Pesach, people are going to Yerushalayim, they're going to buy a lot, so the price is going to go up. The shemen me'atzeres ve'elach, olive oil, you can sell from atzeres. It was just basically the time where the shemen is the best, from Shavuos and on, because after that it goes down dramatically, so it's best to sell as quickly as possible. What is this talking about? I explained before, I already explained this. Talking about shutfin, you can sell without consulting your partner. What about, in all these cases, we mentioned certain time frames, right? After these time frames, the price could go down dramatically. Can you sell that point? My Amarava call Yoma Pirke. Every day is considered sparak, meaning you could, since the price is going down dramatically after these things, it's better to sell as quickly as possible. And the only halacha is that before these, you have to wait before it reaches peak price. That time you can't sell. Once it reaches peak price, you can sell, and then it's going down dramatically. You want to get it off your hands as quickly as possible. This is by Yonah. It says that the sun, right? He had the kikayon, he had the tree that grew for him, and then the sun came out, and Hashem made it an eastern wind. Harishas, my harishas. What is harishas? Amar Rav Yehuda Mishah Sheminasheva is also tlamim. It was such a strong wind that even tlamim bayam, it would make like choresh when you dig up land. It would make basically furrows in the sea. Amar Rabba ihach yahani d'usiv atach Hashem al rosh Yonah v'yizalev. It says in the next pasuk that the sun beat down on the head of Yonah and he almost fainted. So you see, it wasn't a good thing. Amar Rabba b'shash Sheva is mishatekes kol ruchos mevaneh. Charishas means not that it was so strong, but really it was strong that it silenced all the other winds, meaning it made it very hot. Exactly the opposite. By Eov, it says, your clothes are hot when the southern wind stops blowing. I mean, there's only an eastern wind. When do your clothes even become hot? And certainly your body becomes hot. When the southern wind stops to blow, and you only have the wind coming from the east. So it outdoes all the other winds, and it makes you very hot. It's a very warm wind. Rav Huna and Rav Chisda, they were sitting together. This person Geniva, who was a big Talmud Chacham, passed by. One person said to his friend, let's go stand in front of him. Let's give up our seat for him. The Bar Uryan, he's a very smart Talmudic scholar. The other one said to him, Palga Nekel. This person, Geniva, got into a lot of fights with Mar Ukva. So, since he got into fights, he's not someone worthy of standing for. In the meantime, when they were discussing this, Geniva came to them. What are you talking about? We're talking about winds. 4 winds blow from all the 4 directions, blow every day. The northern wind blows strongest among them. All the other winds are deleterious, but the northern wind provides a good breeze, and therefore it cools the world down. He says differently. We were saying before, the eastern wind is the worst. He's saying the southern wind is the worst. Maybe that's the explanation. There's a malach, an angel, Nates, Ben Nates, that stops the southern wind, and therefore the southern wind really doesn't have an effect, and it's the eastern wind which really makes you very hot. Shenemar, how do you know? The pasuk says in Hosea, I believe. In Hosea, Hashem, you know, Yavid Nates, Yifros Knafav Latema. If Nates was gone, then it would spread its wing Latema. Rav Nachman would destroy the world. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Aviyasve. Another story. Rav Nachman Yitzchak were sitting. Have a Chalav Azar of Nachman Yaakov, the Yasav Gurka, the Dahava, Parish al Sarbala, the Karti. In the meantime, a person being drawn in a golden wagon, and he had a coach that was covered in a very expensive cloth that was karti, that was made out of like a greenish blue color. Rava also lagabe. Rava went to greet him. Rav Nachman Yitzchak also lagabe. Amar Dilma Minshid Beirish Galusa Ninu. Right? What was their thought process? They thought he's a very important person. He's in a golden carriage. He's close to the government. Rava Sarich Lahu. Rava had no connection, so therefore he needed to make a favorable impression with him. Analo Sarichna. Rav Nachman Yitzchak said, no, I'm already married into the family, the royal family, the Reish Galusa, the exilarch, the government in Bavel. When Rav Nachman Bar Yaakov who was in the chariot, saw that Rav Nachman wasn't going to him, he went to him. He went to Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Gali Dari, he was rolling up his sleeves. Amar Shadya Nashiv. He said, the wind is blowing, the eastern wind is blowing, it's very hot. Amar Rava, I don't know why it brings this, just talk about the wind. Amar Rava, Aki Amar Rav. When Rava heard this, he says, this is what Rav says, the eastern wind, if it's very strong, it'll cause a woman to have a miscarriage. Even a pearl in the water will spoil. So if a man's together with a woman, normally seed lasts for 3 days to impregnate one once inside the woman. An eastern wind blows, it'll make it incapable of impregnating the woman. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak. When Rav Nachman Yitzchak heard about this, he said, these 3 things are learned in one pasuk. Kihu ben Achim Yafri, he amongst his brothers will be fruitful. Yavo kadim ruach Hashem. But then when the eastern wind comes, Midbar Ola v'yavo makoro, the source dries up. The pasuk continues. Not only does the source dry up, the pasuk continues that his foundation shall dry up, and the wind shall plunder the treasure of all precious vessels. So there's three descriptions. The Gemara is going to darshan. Yavash makora is makora shalisha. It means that she has a fetus in her stomach. She'll have a miscarriage. Vayechar of mayano, the foundation is dried up. That's a reference to the seed, which becomes incapable of impregnating. Once it's already in the woman, it becomes incapable of impregnating the woman if an eastern wind blows. Hu yashasa otzar kulichem, that destroys the entire precious thing. Zu margalis shavayam, even a pearl in the ocean, it destroys. Amarava, Ede surah hu the daiki kra, maki hu ben achem yafru yafri. He says the people, the sages of surah, how do they interpret the first part of the pasuk? Amarava afilu shufta bikofina demara rafya. Even a handle which is inserted in a shovel or a hoe, right, and normally it's very tight, right, in the hole, it becomes loose because the eastern wind. Rav Yosef Amar, Yosef Amar afilu sichsa bidafna. Even a peg in a wall becomes loose. Screw you, bang a nail into a wall, it becomes loose. Rav Yaakov Amar afilu kanya bekufsa rafya. Even a basket, a reed woven into a wicker basket, it becomes loosened based on this eastern wind, which we should all try to avoid. I hope there's some good winds over Shabbos because it's getting very hot over here. We have finished the third parak on Motzi Shabbos. Hopefully we'll start the fourth parak. Hope you enjoyed today's share. Stick around for Iyot Ben Sion when I talk about Safek Tuma, Rishon Yachid and Rishon Rabim. Rishon Yachid were Machmir. Rishon Rabim were normally Mekel. For some reason, we're not Mekel when it comes to a mikvah that was Nimdad and Nimsa Chasar. We pass them like the Rabbanim. I'll explain that in Ian with Ben Sion coming up next.